Bienvenidos and welcome back to Puro Pinche Gol, the place we discuss all things USMNT y la selección mexicana. My name is Adrian. I'm joined once again by my co-host and Tocayo, Adrian. Adrian, how you doing this evening, man?
I'm doing, dude. I'm ready. It's another topic that we've been discussing for a while now. And yeah, I'm ready to do round 2, round 3, whatever this is.
Round 3 of Doña Fede here. During this
hmm
episode, we're going to be discussing kind of the dark side, the behind-the-scenes happenings of the appointment of Diego Cocca to la selección mexicana as the head coach. What all went behind the scenes. It was a real show of smoke and mirrors. A lot was said, a lot was done, quote unquote, and a lot more wasn't done. So there's been a lot of kind of stories popping up of like what wasn't done, what was done, and we kind of want to dig into them and kind of analyze the whole situation here with Federación y Doña Coca, Diego Coca. Um, so let's just jump into it, man. What background can you tell us about this lado oscuro de Doña Fede?
So, all right, there's a couple of names that we gotta remember, and we gotta pay close attention to them because everything that just happened recently with Doña Fede and ligamx and everything behind eltri and Diego Cocca's appointment is not mere coincidence. This has been brewing for the last, I will say, 4 6 months, and even before the time of Diego Cocca and him becoming relevant in ligamx. So the three names that I think are very relevant in this specific discussion are Alejandro Irarragorri, who we know as the former owner of Santos, and now also directivo de Atlas, and now essentially owning el fútbol mexicano. We also have Jorge Alberto Hank, who owns Cholos and Querétaro. And we have Aires de Purga, Aires de Parga, who has been involved with Querétaro and other teams in Liga MX, like Pumas, as a sporting director and other executive roles within those teams. On top of that, also pay attention to Christian Bargarnik, but he will come later. So one thing that I want to be very aware of is back in, I would say, like 2011, 2010. I think it was shortly after 2010's World Cup. Irarragorri, Jorgehank, and Ares de Parga at that time had a committee to, I guess, decide what was going to be the path for eltri's TV rights. And on that committee, they also had González Ornelas, who at the time was Rayados del Monterrey president. And within that committee, they came up with this contract where he had an auto renewal clause for Televisa to hold the rights for 16 more years after I guess 2010 was over. González Ornelas was reluctant to sign that contract or approve the contract because of that specific clause, which he thought it was, not in the best interest of El Tri and Fútbol Mexicano, because at that time they had other companies betting for the TV rights. But of course, these three guys kicked him out and, released the auto renewal clause, and that's the reason why we have Televisa still owning the TV rights for El Tri in Mexico and I think South America, if I'm not mistaken. But this goes to show that these three guys have been working or being in cahoots for a long time. Now, if you look at the recent changes of Liga MX, you will see Ares de Parga as a sporting director. You will see Jorgehank and Alejandro Irarragorri, as two members of that 5-member committee of selecciones nacionales. So it doesn't surprise me that they had to do everything with Diego Cocca's appointment. So needless to say, and I think it goes without saying, that these guys have known each other for a while, have worked with them, have worked together, and now they have kidnapped El Fútbol Mexicano for their own benefit. So that's the biggest background that I can give right now, as far as who owns El Fútbol Mexicano as of today.
Yeah, and who kind of pulled all the strings back there. They do a lot of how do you say it? A lot of they show their face and they show positivity or try to show positivity to football mexicano, but behind the scenes they really are kind of just looking out for themselves and for the dollar bills. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Um, okay, so these guys, obviously have been in cahoots with each other for the longest time. How did it come to, you know, when eltri started looking for this process of finding their new
Mm-hmm.
coach? What is the link there between these three guys and Diego Cocca? How did that happen? Because Diego Cocca, as we know, has kind of just came in out of nowhere and won the job, but at the same time, that's not really the case, is it?
Apparently, and this is something that I've been reading lately, was that it looks like Diego Coca knew that he was going to be the next El Tri's coach since October of last year. It looks
Wow.
like these three guys already knew how things were going to pan out. Not necessarily how El Tri was going to do on Qatar 2022, but they knew that after that World Cup, it will be their chance to take everything home and do whatever they wanted with El Fútbol Mexicano. They already got the blessing from Emilio Azcárraga, who owns Televisa and owns America, and who a lot of people say that he's the real puppeteer. But he essentially allowed Irarragorri to say, "Hey, man, you know what? All right, I chose Doña Fede's president, which is El Bueno para Nada de John de Luisa, and I'm going to allow you to choose El Tri's coach." And then Hank was like, "All right, hold on a second. I also want a take on these decisions. So I'm going to put Aires de Parga, as the sporting director for El Tri." So this is the link between all of them and how they came with this decision of Diego Cocca. How Diego Cocca is linked to jorgehank, irarragorri, and Ares de Parga is, well, as you may know already, Diego Cocca coached Santos, he coached
Hmm.
Cholos, he coached Atlas, and he and Ares de Parga worked at Querétaro, which is owned by jorgehank. By the way, if you know. So this is how they all got to know each other. This is how jorgehank and irarragorri gave the blessing for Diego Coca to be the next coach in line. And it also was an easy decision for Ares de Parga, because he essentially he is an employee of jorgehank.
Right.
He's just there to show face and essentially be a pushover. Like, hey, we're gonna do this. Just pretend that you're doing your job and whatever, man. So yeah, that's how we know each other. And there's a very specific link to them, in the name of Christian Bagarnik, who I think is also very, very, very interesting, and um, not only interesting but very troublesome stakeholder in this entire new phase of what we call La Nueva Doña Fede.
La nueva, pero no tan nueva. I mean, it's still kind of the same old
Yeah.
guys that are running it.
Hmm.
So basically, what you're saying here for our listeners that don't really follow La Federación Mexicana too much is that the whole past 2-3 months since after Qatar 2022, the whole we're gonna change the whole we're gonna be you know transparent with our comings and goings and our decisions from here on out. We're going to interview a wide variety of candidates for the job. It was all show. I mean, they may have interviewed them, but for the longest time, they already had their man in Diego Cocca.
It was all a charade, dude. It was all a charade. It was just a dog and pony show. Let's pretend that we're doing our job. Let's vamos a darle pan y circo al pueblo. And while we all know that the decision has been made, and we're gonna stick to Diego Cocca. Now, there's a couple of caveats to Diego Cocca being appointed. There's a reason. There's a couple of reports saying that the decision got delayed by a couple of days, because the I guess the even though they got the approval from Emilio Azcárraga, one of the caveats of bringing Diego Cocca was, we're gonna give him a contract, and within that contract, it is stipulated that if Diego Cocca was unable to win the Gold Cup and the Nations League within the, I guess, the next whatever 6 months or even less than a year, that they will have the right to release him without paying him the remaining of the contract or paying him
Mhm.
anything. But Christian Bragarnik, who's Diego Cocca's manager, he uh, he stood up for his coach and said, "Look, we gotta get rid of that specific clause for whatever reason." So, long story short, the clause doesn't call out that specifically, but it's said around El Tri's sphere that if Diego Cocca doesn't deliver on those two championships,
Mhm.
he's out, and that's the whole reason why El Piojo ended up going to Cholos because he just recently got hired by Cholos
Right.
because they're saying like, look, he's Plan B. If everything fails with Diego Coca, we're gonna go grab Piojo, and they put Piojo in a team where they're not gonna have a lot of pushback to pull out the coach from because
Uh,
Jorgehank owns Cholos, right?
right.
So yeah, man. I mean, I think it goes bigger than what we're discussing right now because, as I said, Christian Bagarnik is a key element on this whole scheme, and I'm more than happy to tell you why.
Why is that? I mean, I'm looking at our notes here, and
Hmm.
it looks like Christian Bragarnik is he's a crazy figure. He's not only a
Hmm.
manager for players, for coaches. He's an owner of Elche en La Liga. He has close ties with many teams in Mexico. Um, he just has history with all these old farts in La Federación. How
He
is that
does.
all? How is that all like? Go into more depth as what you were going to say. The connection there.
So, I mean, as I've explained throughout this episode, Christian Bagarnik represents Diego Cocca, and Christian Bagarnik used to be a professional player back in the early 2000s. He retired because he wasn't that good, and he started putting together like tapes of players and trying to make a break on the management side
Mhm,
of
mhm,
football. His first approach to Liga MX was back in 2001 when he sold a Argentinian player to Irapuato, and that was his foot in the door with Liga MX. Um, he started to do well. He developed some ties with Irapuato, and that led him to become a sporting director at Querétaro. And for a while, he was a director for Querétaro, where he collaborated with Ares de Parga when Ares de Parga was in Querétaro. So that's how
mm,
they, have close ties right there. Then he decides to go out of Querétaro and just become a, straight up coach manager and player manager, which he now has around 200 players under his wallet and around 20 coaches. He, as you said, owns Elche in La Liga. He has a stake on Godoy Cruz and I think another Argentinian team, like Defensa Justicia, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Um, and he has a he has made a very strong working relationship with the likes of Jorge Hank and irarragorri, and has essentially plagued those teams with his players. If you look at the list of his players, you will see that a lot of them are in Santos, Atlas, Cholos, and Querétaro. So it's not a surprise that we see Diego Cocca being the coach. It is not a surprise that we see his name, being out there. And the reason why I say that he's a very important key on this whole situation is because if you listen to Diego Cocca's interview, and whenever they ask him if if he's gonna be closing the doors to those veteran players, or if he's gonna be looking at young
mhm,
players, or if he's gonna be using naturalizados,
mhm.
he bluntly says the el tri is open for anyone. El tri es para todos los mexicanos, para todos los mexicanos. So if you think thoroughly and you put you start connecting the dots, I think we are very we're on the edge of seeing maybe an influx of naturalizados in eltri, which I'm not opposed to it. I'm not against it. I think it's fine. I think it's just the future of the sport, anyways, because you see this a lot with European nations. But you will see Christian Bragarnik players in El Tri so he can sell them at a higher price tag to other teams.
Jesus.
I wouldn't be surprised if we see Mateus Doria with the Mexican with El Tri's shirt. I wouldn't be surprised if we see the likes of uh, Ricardo, no, not Ricardo Baliño, Nacho Rivero. If we see Emmanuel Aguilera, some of these players that haven't been capped for for their national teams. Uh, Hell, I wouldn't even be surprised if we see Julio Furch, who was a regular starter with Diego Cocca during his time in Atlas. Maybe you will
Hmm.
see Julian Quiñones using El Tri's
Hmm.
uh, shirt. So I mean, it's just it's very convoluted, man. If you pay close attention to every single move, if you listen to what they say, if you look closely at the words, you can read between the lines that everything is lining up to see an influx of naturalizados en la selección and beaucoup dinero in the wallet of Christian Bagarnik, Diego Cocca, Irarragorri, and Jorgehank.
Dang. What a clusterfuck. What a mess there.
No kidding, dude. No kidding, man. It's I don't see it other way, man. It's like if they're even if they have the best intentions, right? Even if they're whatever they're saying is true, and they're really looking forward to improve El Tri's performance in the on an international stage, and develop players, or just you know leave some a legacy for El Tri. It's difficult to believe that they're not in this for their own benefit, right?
Right, because I
It's
mean, oh,
the
go for it.
the you can see it. It's everywhere, dude. Like the signs are on the wall. It's difficult not to just think poorly of this situation.
Yeah, you'd have to be blind to not read the signs. It looks like we're just gonna be, like you said, we're in for a crazy 6 months and a crazy 3, 4, 5 years of seeing if maybe a new look at three. I mean, influx of just foreigners. The El Tri fans in general haven't. I'd say most of them aren't too open to having foreigners represent a lot. There's a lot of bias to, obviously, rightfully so, to having puro jugador mexicano. So
Yeah.
having this naturalized, there's every time there's a player that's kind of become a citizen, naturalized citizen, there's always pushback. So I mean, will that change if El Tri starts winning and performing at the big stage? Who knows? But as of now, it's crazy. It's gonna we should start a kind of like a bingo card, seeing how many players of Cristian Magarnix make it to El Tri.
Yeah, we should, man. And honestly, if we don't see a Christian Brianic player with a three shirt, damn it, I will get a freaking tlacuache haircut, dude.
No, that'll be PPG's new mascot picture. You and your taquacha
So
haircut.
this is how much I'm certain that we will see a Christian Bragarnik player in El Tri's uh, uh, squad. Not maybe not in the most recent on the next one that it's about to happen in a few weeks, but
Hmm.
I'll be damned if we don't see one at least during the Gold Cup or Nations League or any other partido molero that El Tri was gonna have in the next years.
Well, it looks like it's a win-win situation for us. We either see this or we get a taquacha haircut for you. Um, So yeah, we'll leave it at that until more news and more rumors start
Hmm.
circling about this, which it seems that every week we get something new. Um, I know it's a topic you feel passionate about. So, Adrian, thanks for breaking that down for us, man. Before we head out, tell our listeners where they can find us.
Man, if they like to see our pretty faces, they can find us on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, hit the like button, and turn on the notifications. If they're okay just listening to our pretty voices, they can find us on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or any other podcast service they're a subscriber on. They can also find us on Instagram and Twitter at Puro Pinche Gol. Make sure to check us out. We post some wild stuff every now and then. So, yeah.
Yeah, be sure to follow us on your preferred social media platform and check us out for the next episode. Definitely. Adrian, another pleasure being here with you, man. See you in the next one, brother.
Take it easy, my man.